The events in this program are inspired by a true story. Names, dates, and details have been changed. Viewer discretion is advised. On this episode of Bizarre Murders, when Gavin's beautiful girlfriend, Amber, is brutally stabbed to death, Gavin finds solace in the arms of his sympathetic ex-lover, Meredith. But when Meredith is arrested for attempting to murder her husband, Tim, a husband that Gavin didn't even know about, a shocking web of love, lust, obsession, and deceit unravels.
Nobody should die that way.
I've never seen anything that horrific.
One of the duties of a pathologist is to determine the cause of death.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required. Download Veely now.
Meet Meredith, a smart and ambitious lawyer who's on the fast track to becoming partner. She's been married to Tim, her college sweetheart, for 13 years.
Oh, what a shot! Damn.
But Meredith finds herself a little bored with the repetition of married life. The spark may have faded from their marriage.
Oh, jeez.
But Meredith has plans to light it back up.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
For Tim, it's a bit of sensuous fun.
Guess what this is?
For Meredith, it's something else entirely.
Ooh, soft. Oh, like a feather.
Yeah.
I like this game after all.
Tell me what this is.
Well.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I slipped.
It was a knife!
No, it was a letter.
Get
I'm
it!
so sorry.
Get me out of this!
Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay!
Tim's not okay.
Call the ambulance!
I don't know where my phone is.
What?
Sorry, I don't know where my phone is. I can't find it.
Get me out of the cuffs, I'll find a phone.
Oh, okay, I found it. They put me on hold. The thing that song you like.
What?
Hi, 911. I have an emergency.
I'm bleeding.
There's been an accident. Can you send an ambulance right away? It's critical, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, they'll be here in a minute.
I've seen a lot in my 25 years at the FBI, but someone getting stabbed happens every day. Or maybe, just maybe, there's more to this situation than meets the eye.
For 20 minutes, Tim and Meredith wait for an ambulance. But at the 45-minute mark, Tim insists that Meredith drive him to the ER, or he's going to pass out. What is normally a 20-minute drive to the hospital takes twice the time. When Tim and Meredith finally arrive, he's alive, but weak, in severe agony, and covered in his own blood.
Hey!
Oh, hi. Can you please help me? What's
going on?
My husband, something happened.
Lucky for him, a passerby sees the struggle and comes to Tim's aid. Hospital personnel rushes him to the ER. Minutes later, he's in surgery.
I have no idea what happened. I just found him like this.
When the police speak with Meredith, she tells them that Tim got stabbed at work and came home with his wounds.
I don't know what to tell you.
When no ambulance came, she rushed him to the ER.
Do you know anything? Is he okay right now? Do you know anything?
FBI agents and cops are very literal people, so if you're gonna spin us a yarn, it's got to ring true. The thing to do now is hear her out. hear what she's got to say, and then see if the evidence bears it out. That's Investigation 101. Hope you were taking notes. It'll be on the quiz.
This man found us, and he came and helped me bring him into the hospital.
But the Good Samaritan tells a different story.
This girl just stabbing her.
He saw Meredith lunging at Tim with a letter opener, so he came to Tim's aid.
And took her.
If you're gonna try to hoodwink a cop, give it your best shot, but you better hope they've got nothing to check your story against. Meredith figured that Tim wouldn't be alive to tell his side of the story, but he is, and he does.
When Tim wakes up from having the hole in his heart stitched up, he's in no hurry to see Meredith. And his version of the story is very different from the one Meredith told. No, he did not come home bleeding. His wife stabbed him while they were playing a game. She called 911, but no ambulance came. She seemed freaked out that she'd hurt him, but then totally flipped out and started stabbing him again, this time in the parking lot of the hospital. The police have enough to arrest Meredith on suspicion of attempted murder. But they still need to build the case for the trial. Detective Castle is the primary investigator assigned to the case. She carefully combs through Meredith's phone records and finds that she did make a call after stabbing her husband. But she didn't call 911. She called someone named Gavin. Detective Castle does some investigating and finds out that not only does Gavin work at the same law firm as Meredith, but he was investigated in the brutal murder of his girlfriend 6 months earlier.
Making connections is what crime solving is all about. That's what makes Sam Spade's story so compelling. He sees connections other people never would. That moment of insight, that's what you live for.
911, what is your emergency?
I think there's a man attacking my neighbor. I heard her screaming and some kind of fight.
When the police arrive expecting to find a domestic squabble, they instead discover something far worse. A grisly murder scene. The victim is Amber, a beautiful young woman with an Ivy League degree who specializes in international law. She's been stabbed 20 times in the face, neck, and torso. The wounds are consistent with a sharp, narrow object, probably an ice pick. No valuables were taken. No witnesses. The neighbor who called 911 is nowhere to be found. The police find blood traces on a sink in the powder room and theorize that the person who killed Amber may have gone into the bathroom to wash up, leaving DNA behind. The blood sample is submitted for analysis, but can take up to a year for accurate results.
Whoever committed the crime was likely known to Amber because she let that person into her home without a struggle. Local cops determined this was likely a crime of passion. An ice pick for a murder weapon speaks to a certain level of coldness. It's a very personal way to commit a murder.
Gavin was considered a prime suspect because he's Amber's boyfriend. He's brought in for questioning by Detective Campbell,
Seemed nervous.
the lead investigator in Amber's murder. Throughout the interview, Gavin is emotionless and vacant.
You guys worked together, that's right?
Yeah, the law firm.
You didn't have any reason to harm her.
No. If I did, why would I tell you? It's an interesting question.
At one point, he even starts picking at his eyebrows uncontrollably. All of these behaviors send up red flags for the investigators. And while Gavin may look like the perfect suspect,
And where were you on the day she died?
I told you I was at work.
he has an ironclad alibi.
I never left the building.
The law firm has an elaborate security system. Its data backs up Gavin's story.
So Mr. Eyebrows is off the hook for now, but if it were me, he wouldn't be completely off. I'd still be digging into his past because you never know what kind of skeletons you might be finding there.
6 months later, Amber's murder is still unsolved. Now, Detective Campbell, who has teamed up with Detective Castle, brings in Gavin for another round of questioning. This time, it's about his connection to Meredith.
This guy Gavin, he better be squeaky clean because he's got a weird way of violence following him around like a bad smell.
Gavin, can you tell me why Meredith would call you instead of an ambulance?
It didn't really make any sense. The phone call.
Hi, 911. I have an emergency.
I'm bleeding.
There's been an accident. Can you send an ambulance right
Sorry?
away?
Meredith?
At first, he denies really knowing her, but eventually admits to a relationship.
I was seeing her before I met Amber.
You went out.
Yeah, when I met Amber, I broke up with her.
It becomes clear that Meredith wasn't thrilled with their relationship coming to an end.
I guess Meredith didn't take too kindly to being cast aside by Gavin, especially for a younger colleague. Talk about your messy workplace love triangle. I mean, we all know jealousy is a powerful emotion. When it's unleashed, it can have a mind of its own. You remember the bunny scene from the movie Fatal Attraction? Who could forget it?
Amber doesn't know it, but she's now in Meredith's crosshairs. In Meredith's mind, it's not that Gavin isn't interested. It's that Amber is in the way.
Did you know she was married?
No? What?
Meredith's married.
Since when?
She's been married for over a decade.
What's becoming clear is that Meredith is a master of deception. She's created a world of her own and beguiled other people into living in it.
Who's her husband? What is...
It's amazing what people can accept or believe, or how ready we are to take a person's word for who they are and what their agenda is.
Tim, the good husband, believes she has a man-hating sister for whom he has to leave the house whenever she visits.
Oh, come on.
Oh, babe, my sister's gonna be here soon.
Oh, yeah? Oh, I guess I'll go watch the game at the bar then.
Okay.
Gavin, the boyfriend, believes he's spending weekends with an attractive single woman. Meredith has spun an elaborate web of lies, making it possible to live the perfect double life.
So Meredith stabs her husband, claiming it was an accident. And then we learn that she had an affair with a guy at work who traded her in for a newer model, which she didn't take kindly to. And that woman gets murdered, and that crime is never solved. Wow, that's way too much coincidence for me. If I were a betting man, I'd be looking more closely at Meredith.
Having already established means and opportunity, police now have motive. Meredith had been having an affair and wanted her husband out of the way so she could be with her lover, Gavin.
You've heard that expression, open and shut? Well, that pretty much describes the case against Meredith when it goes to court. The prosecution demolishes her implausible and constantly changing story. The stab wounds, the witnesses, the phone call to Gavin that proves she never even called 911.
Meredith is convicted for the attempted murder of her husband, Tim, and is sentenced to 20 years. One case might be closed, but police are convinced that Meredith is involved in Amber's death. They just need to prove it. Detective Castle listens to the anonymous 911 call made on the night of Amber's murder.
911, what is your emergency? I think there's a man attacking my neighbor. I heard her screaming and some kind of fight.
And is convinced that the voice belongs to Meredith. But when the 911 call is put through voice recognition software, the comparison isn't conclusive.
Voice recognition software is a great tool for investigators, but because it's not 100%, it won't hold up in court. Investigators need to find evidence against Meredith that isn't circumstantial. They need something that will give them means and opportunity.
Detective Castle searches the company records where all three people in our love triangle worked. She makes a key discovery. Meredith left work at the same time as Amber did on the day of her murder. Meredith returned 2 hours later.
The first M is motive.
So, court date Wednesday.
It is clear that Meredith was obsessed with Gavin and determined to be with him. Amber was the obstacle. Means. An ice pick isn't hard to get. And Meredith clearly knows how to stab someone because she's now in prison for having done just that. And the O is for opportunity. She had that as well. That security system that proved Gavin was at work when Amber was killed now reveals that Meredith was out. And Amber knew Meredith and would have let her into her home. So we have means and opportunity. But it's still circumstantial and won't necessarily hold up in court. Investigators need a smoking gun, a piece of evidence that places Meredith at Amber's home.
Finally, the blood spatter analysis comes back for the DNA found on the sink in Amber's bathroom. And they found a match. It's the smoking gun the police have been looking for. The blood found on Amber's sink matches Meredith's DNA. This places Meredith at the scene of the crime and is enough to arrest her for Amber's murder.
At some point during the fight, without realizing it, Meredith nicked herself with the ice pick. This is actually very common, especially when the attacker is holding a sharp weapon that is slippery with blood. But when she washed her hands, she left some of her own blood on the faucet. And that's why the DNA results showed Amber's blood mixed with Meredith's.
When Meredith starts talking,
I love Gavin. I just wanted to be with him.
the investigators realize she's one of those rare things.
Like the only solution.
Yes. Yeah.
A true monster.
She deserved it. She was making me crazy.
Who's played everyone in her life to satisfy her lusts and obsessions.
I had to be around them, flirting. It just drove me insane, like seeing them together every day at work, like making out in front of me. Unprofessional.
When she lost Gavin to Amber, she set out to get him back, whatever the cost.
How did you kill her?
First, I hit her on the head with this thing and she fell to the ground, and then I stabbed her. I stabbed her multiple times.
20 times.
Was it 20? I don't know. It felt like not enough.
Let's go over it one more time.
I went to her house.
Would you like some water?
I would love some. Thank you.
What brings you by?
Oh, not much. I just wanted to come see your place. Hello. I think there's a man attacking my neighbor. I heard her screaming in some kind of fight. Can you send an ambulance?
After eliminating her competition, Meredith cleans herself up and then heads back to work like nothing happened. With Amber out of the picture, Meredith can have Gavin all to herself. They rekindled the affair, but this time, Meredith isn't prepared to lead a double life. There's only one person standing in the way of Meredith living happily ever after with Gavin. Her husband, Tim.
People who get away with murder once tend to get cocky. An ice pick worked nicely on Amber, but Tim is stronger, so Meredith figures out a way to trick him. But in the end, all she did was lay the breadcrumbs that led the investigators of Amber's murder right to her.
I'm very sorry, okay? I'm very sorry, but I had no other choice. I'm not sorry I did it. She deserved it, okay?
Meredith is sentenced to 60 years for the murder of Amber.
The lesson here? You can't have your cake and eat it too. Meredith may have led the perfect double life and thought she got away with the perfect murder. But like most criminals, your past usually catches up with you. If it hadn't been for this blood on the faucet, she might just have gotten away with it too. Meredith should be free to start a new life in 2089. She'll be 109. Who knows? By then, 109 might be the new 90.
The events in this program are inspired by a true story. Names, dates, and details have been changed. Viewer discretion is advised. On this episode of Bizarre Murders, when a young woman is murdered, detectives follow the bizarre trail from takeout tacos to a bachelor party. And just when they start to think the killer might get away with murder, they uncover the truth behind the vicious attack and find themselves smack dab in the middle of a Shakespearean tragedy.
My love. And I am no longer a Capulet.
Rob, a 29-year-old former first responder, has failed to show up to his uncle's house for dinner. When he calls his cell, it goes straight to voicemail. Worried about his nephew, Mr. Simons drives over to the apartment and lets himself in with the spare key.
Robbie! Robbie, you okay?
Rob's apartment looks tidy, but his nephew is nowhere to be seen. When he looks in Rob's bedroom, he's horrified. He sees the body of a young woman prostrate on the bed, and on the front of her t-shirt, the words, "She's all yours," are scrawled in black marker.
Can you send someone?
When you've worked as many crime scenes as I have, you often see the killer leaving some kind of message. This one seems to suggest the suspect was leaving a note for another lover. Love triangles are one of the most common motives for murder. So the killer is essentially saying, I don't want her anymore, you can have her. But of course, they can't, for obvious reasons.
When police arrive, they survey the scene. The young woman has been stabbed, her pants cut off, suggesting a sexual assault. A knife is on the bed, likely the murder weapon. At first glance, she's been stabbed several times in the back. Under the body, a cell phone, presumably the victim's.
Detectives are looking for the murder weapon or weapons. These are the most obvious clues found at a crime scene that can lead to the killer. But just because there's weapons found near the body, it doesn't necessarily mean they were used in the crime.
The victim is 21-year-old Lisa. Born to Italian immigrants, she's a kind and caring young woman who always looks out for her friends. And one of those friends is Rob. Lisa and Rob met at college. They became close when she offered to tutor him.
So right now, this isn't looking so good for Rob. His close friend is found dead in his bed, and he is nowhere to be seen. Detectives are putting together the pieces of this puzzle, and it looks like Rob may have had some romantic feelings towards his friend. If those feelings were unrequited, bam, there's your motive.
Mr. Simons tells detectives that Rob couldn't have committed this crime. He's been taking a break from his work as a first responder due to a work-related injury. According to Simons, he's been suffering with PTSD and was having nightmares. But the meds seem to be helping. He insists that Lisa and Rob were extremely close friends, more like brother and sister. and they had no romantic inclinations toward each other. In fact, Mr. Simons is concerned that Lisa's killer has kidnapped his nephew and that he is in imminent danger.
In my experience, it's very common for relatives of criminals to deny their loved one did anything wrong. You'll often see daddy or auntie come swooping into their kid's defense when all the evidence points directly to their precious little Johnny.
As detectives search the crime scene, they develop a different theory. They find no signs of a struggle in the apartment. If someone subdued Rob, they believe the young, strong first responder would have put up a fight. They also find his car and his passport missing. But what really seals Rob's fate are the text messages on Lisa's phone. They reveal a distressed Rob reaching out to Lisa in the early morning hours.
More and more signs are pointing to Rob. He has a dead girl in his apartment, his passport and car are missing, and now messages on Lisa's phone show him inviting her over. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out he's your prime suspect. You know how the saying goes, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck.
Detectives dig deeper into Rob's life and learn some alarming details. Right before becoming a first responder, Rob was involved with a bad crowd. He was arrested along with his friends and charged with assault. He was eventually acquitted and exonerated of the crime, but detectives are still alarmed.
Just because you've been acquitted of a crime doesn't mean you didn't do it, and the cops know that. It just means the DA didn't have enough evidence to pin it on you. So this guy's suffering from PTSD, and he's previously been arrested for assault. And that is a dangerous cocktail. They need to find this ticking time bomb fast.
They track Rob's movement through his finances and discover his bank card has been used 4 times at different ATMs across the city. The last withdrawal was an hour ago. That means Rob could still be in the city.
Cash withdrawals and debit purchases leave a money trail that's easy for police to track. Criminals should know better, but hey, we're not talking about the top 1% of Harvard graduates, are we? It looks like Rob is feeling the pressure, and it's causing him to get a little sloppy.
But when police obtain surveillance footage from the ATM, they get a shock. It's not Rob withdrawing money, but an unidentified white male wearing a baseball cap.
This is a curveball the detective didn't see coming. They were expecting to see Rob, not some pimply teenager. So now they have to figure out who this kid is, how he fits in the picture, and most importantly, how they can track him down.
As they search for their new suspect, the cops get a lucky break. Someone uses Rob's bank card to order Mexican food for delivery to their house.
Of all the ways to get caught, ordering a few tacos is really a new one. I'll give him points for originality, I mean, at the very least.
Investigators follow the tacos to a home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The police gather outside the house.
Police, open up!
But when nobody answers, they break down the door.
Freeze, clear!
Police get a big surprise.
Show me your hand!
It's not Rob. It's the young man from the ATM machine.
After all these years as an investigator, nothing surprises me. But this is a twist even I wasn't expecting. The challenge with this type of case is that you have to remain kind of nimble. You have to be able to refocus and figure out your next steps. And you gotta do that fast because you've got a killer on the loose.
The young man is 20-year-old Kevin, a freshman at the local community college. As the police search his house, the detective finds an important piece of evidence: Rob's bank card.
How'd you get Rob's bank card?
Listen, I don't know who Rob is, okay? I don't know anything about any of this. I have this family friend, right? And he told me, he showed me these documents and said you just gotta go around to all these ATMs and take some cash out.
Which friend?
His name is Jack. Let me just grab one second.
Jack told him he works for a bail bond agency. He's collecting some outstanding debt.
Right there. That's him. That's Jack.
He swears on his mother's life that he has no idea who Rob is.
Jack, where can I find Jack?
Beats me, man. I mean, you know.
Instinct always plays a part in any investigation, and whenever you're interrogating a suspect, you use it to determine whether or not they are lying. So if this young kid is to be believed, and it looks like he is, it seems we've got some kind of trickster manipulating a naive teenager for financial gain. The question is, to what end?
Detectives learn that 28-year-old Jack is a fun, outgoing amateur actor with a magnetic personality. He grew up with loving parents who gave him every opportunity in life. And he has no history of violence or psychological problems. He's a big player in the local theater scene, often playing the leading man in their productions.
Oh, speak again, bright angel. For thou art as glorious to this night being o'er my head as is a winged messenger of heaven unto the white...
Jack is good at what he does, and he loves the limelight. But he's happy to be king of the community theater world rather than seeking fame and fortune in Hollywood.
Be but sworn by love, and I will no longer be a Capulet. I felt really good about that.
Yeah.
I felt really in it. Shall we do it again?
How about bigger? How about even bigger? Just to...
Yes.
All the way up, and then
I
we
want
push it
to.
down.
I want to feel it from my soul.
Yeah. And then we'll push it down into our toes.
Yes.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay.
He's engaged to fellow actress Nicole, who often plays the female lead opposite him. They've been living together for a year and are eagerly anticipating their elaborate wedding, followed by a tropical beach honeymoon. They're currently starring in a Shakespearean tragedy produced by the local theater company My Way or Broadway. The wedding is scheduled 5 days after the close of the show.
And I will no longer be a Capulet. Whose phone went off? Seriously, we're in rehearsal. Really?
Larry!
But what police find most interesting about the thespian is not his range as an actor, but his home address. He lives 1 floor above Rob in the same apartment complex.
Proximity. It's a key factor when you're trying to make a link between suspects. So you got Rob, who's our murder suspect, and Jack, who is taking money out of his account. And they live next door to each other. Highly unlikely this is coincidence. I'm betting they're in cahoots. The question that needs to be answered is how and why.
Detective Young contacts Jack and asks him to come down to the police station for a chat. He refuses, telling them he's attending his bachelor party. But the police wait for no man, especially when attending his own bachelor party.
Have a seat, Jack.
Jack is accused of helping Rob escape capture.
What's up?
Can you tell me about Rob?
Rob. My buddy Rob.
While Jack admits to knowing Rob, he claims he has no idea where he is. When the detectives threaten to throw him in jail, he sticks to his story.
No.
Look, this is not a joke. You can miss your wedding. I'm dead serious. I will lock you up. Is that the kind of game you want to play?
Jack finally capitulates.
Okay, man. Okay, I'll tell you everything I know, okay?
Some investigators threaten suspects with a horror of jail or an arrest or something trivial like that. I used to like to threaten them with not being able to go to their kid's college graduation, their 5-year-old kid's college graduation.
I was at the theater performing in my play, Romeo and Juliet, with my fiancée. And it was a fantastic night, actually. And we went home, went to bed. I woke up the next morning to this pounding on the door, okay? I open it up, and what do I see but Rob standing in front of me, wild-eyed, like a madman. Arms flexed and veins pulsing and forehead just about to burst. He tells me, Jack, I've killed Lisa.
It's a one-man show, and Jack has the starring role. But his over-the-top performance piques Detective Young's suspicion. In other words, he doth protest too much. He paints a picture of Rob as on the run and desperate for cash.
And he asked me for money. He says, I've got to get out of here. I got to go. Got to get away. I got to go on the run. I got to...
Where's Rob now?
No, I don't know.
I always love a good performance, and nothing gives me more pleasure than to watch a stupid criminal think he's playing the detectives. I just need a bag of popcorn, and I'm set.
Detective Young tightens the screws on Jack and collects his DNA to compare to the crime scene. He also asks for a writing sample to compare the killer's note left on Lisa's t-shirt. And when he asks to see his phone, they hit pay dirt. They discover incriminating online searches made on the week before the murder.
If I wasn't in the business of catching killers, I'd open a school for dumb criminals and teach one class and one class only. B, if you're going to commit a crime, don't, I repeat, do not do an internet search on your computer or phone on how to do it.
And so you research how to get rid of a corpse.
Feeling the heat, Jack suddenly changes his story. Again.
Okay. I went down to his place with him. Detective,
He admits to being in Rob's apartment on the night of the murder, but denies being there when the murder actually occurred.
So
here's where you can tell the professional criminals from the amateurs. The pros stick to their story, no matter what. It doesn't matter what you throw at them. The newbies crack. They keep changing their story. They scramble to come up with something that makes sense. And this, my friends, is amateur hour.
And
Jack tells Detective Young that Rob came upstairs begging for his help that night. He claims he went down to Rob's apartment, uncertain as to what he would find. But when he stepped into Rob's bedroom, he saw a horrible sight.
What did you see?
I saw Lisa dead. If he killed her, man.
Jack has been putting on quite a performance until now, but detectives have forced him into a corner. It remains to be seen whether he can act his way out of this one or not.
Lying on the bed.
When he's pressed to describe what he saw, he makes a fateful blunder.
What exactly did you see?
I saw that she'd been stabbed in the back 3 times.
Detectives know something that Jack doesn't. That's information only the killer would know.
Here's the thing. You wouldn't be able to tell how many times Lisa was stabbed just by looking at the body. With this kind of injury, there's just too much blood. The only way you would know how many times the victim was wounded is if you were there.
Can I make a phone call?
Realizing the cops are closing in, Jack asks to speak to his fiancée, Nicole, on the phone.
Nicole. Hey, it's me.
She tells him she's found a bag with bloody clothes and Rob's passport in it. She warns Jack that she's going to tell the police about it. He begs her not to.
Nicole, don't do that, okay? I can explain everything.
Remember what I said about teaching only one class to criminals? I take it back. I'm gonna make it 2. When you make a phone call from jail or a police station, the cops can hear you. They record the calls. Any attempt to talk secretly or in code is going to get you nowhere. In fact, it'll only dig yourself deeper into a pit of self-incrimination.
Okay, so I did it. I killed them both, okay? You want to know how I did it? I got him to the theater, and I let him into the back. I told him I needed his help carrying some bags to my car. Said I hurt my shoulder in a rehearsal.
I can bring him down to your car?
Please, yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you, Rob.
As Rob bends down to pick up the bags, Jack grabs him from behind and slits his throat.
I just slit his throat. And flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
Then he waits for Rob to bleed out. He steals Rob's wallet, cell phone, and apartment keys. That night, Jack goes on with the show, putting on an incredible performance. After the show is over, he and Nicole go back to their apartment. Posing as Rob, he sends a text message to Rob's college friend, Lisa, who Jack had previously met. Just after 11, Lisa arrives at Rob's apartment building.
Hi, Lisa, come in, please.
He tells her Rob texted him too, asking for help. He says Rob is in the bedroom.
Oh, well, you know how he is. He won't get out of bed. Let me take your coat.
He's careful to wipe his prints from the knife. Proceeds to cut off Lisa's pants with one of Rob's scissors from his first responder kit. And writes, "She's all yours," on her t-shirt. Jack then steals Rob's car keys and passport.
Despite the guy's penchant for overacting, he obviously did a good enough job to convince Lisa, who he'd only met a couple of times before, to walk into his trap. And then, in some twisted drama of his own making, he tries to destroy Rob's reputation by making him look like a rapist and a murderer.
The next day, Jack returns to the theater and dismembers Rob's body. He takes his body parts to an abandoned industrial site, where he disposes of them in several steel drums. What he tells the police next is probably the most disturbing part of the story.
It was seriously, dude. I was kind of laughing while I was doing it. It was weird, but it was kind of fun. It felt like I was in a movie, you know, like that scene. Yeah.
If we didn't know it before, we know it now. There's a lot of words I can think of for somebody like this, but why don't we just stick to the professional one? Psychopath.
Yeah, and I put all the bits in different steel drums.
But why would a seemingly well-adjusted, well-loved, well-raised young man commit such a heinous crime?
There's always gotta be a motive, even with self-absorbed psychopaths. This guy's been forthcoming so far, but that doesn't mean he's gonna give it all to the cops on a silver platter. And it doesn't mean it's gonna make sense.
And I was having a pretty difficult time. Lost in the woods, you might say, yeah? And well, I have a bit of trouble with what people call truth, because really, who gets to decide what's true? Detective? Do you?
Jack admits he's a pathological liar that has been in a downward spiral for 2 years.
Yeah, it'd be like our
premiere.
engagement premiere,
That's
and
pretty cool.
so we could have our engagement photos outside.
He has allowed his passion for theater to take up all his time and energy, and has moved from one low-paying, dead-end job to another. At the time of the murder, he's 2 months behind in his rent and facing eviction. As debts slowly close in on him, he starts worrying about how he's going to pay for his upcoming wedding and honeymoon. He starts borrowing money from friends, and when that avenue runs out, his money situation becomes even more desperate.
Yeah.
But-
We can talk on the way.
Sure.
On the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You see this a lot in my business. Desperation leads to stupidity. Once a criminal feels like the walls are closing in, they're probably not gonna make good decisions from there on out. It kind of takes the desperate times call for desperate measures idea just a little too far, you know?
But Jack knows someone who has a lot of money, if only he can get his hands on it.
Yeah, no, this is it's a smart TV. Look, I'm on the internet right now. How cool is that? Yeah, so I can basically...
Rob Simons had received $80,000 as a settlement after a work injury as a first responder.
TV, you know?
When Jack finds this out, he devises a way to make that money his own.
$80,000 might seem like a small amount of money to kill for, but to Jack, this was enough to solve all of his money problems, avoid eviction, pay for his wedding, and pay for his honeymoon. From his skewed point of view, it was worth it.
I just needed money. I just needed the money.
Jack couldn't admit to his fiancée that he had no job, no money, and couldn't afford to marry her. Most people at this point would either get a job or postpone the wedding. Not Jack, though. He decides his best solution is to kill his neighbor. And then, this is where it gets even more crazy, he decides to also kill Lisa to cover his tracks.
On the day Jack was supposed to marry his fiancée Nicole, he is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. At trial, he pleads not guilty, despite having previously confessed. But the jury are not convinced by his theatrics and find him guilty of murder. Jack is sentenced to life without parole, with no more roles to play except for that of a convicted felon.
East and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon.
Evil has many different faces. This one had 2. The popular and fun-loving actor and the selfish, cold-blooded killer. Jack cast himself in the role of double murderer and probably thought he could get away with it. But his penchant for performing was too great, and he acted himself into a corner his skills couldn't get him out of. This was a crime so bizarre that he committed 2 savage murders so he could have a beach honeymoon. He wrote himself a twisted tale to star in and left 2 innocent victims in the wings. Even Shakespeare in all his glory couldn't have written this one. Stephen King, on the other hand, well, you get the picture.